Hi as well. Happy New Year's Eve, December 31st, 2024. Yeah. So I guess I've been on a streak of making videos. This is my eighth day in a row of making videos. I think the one I posted last night, I posted after midnight, but I recorded it before midnight. But in any case, before I go to sleep counts as a day in my mind. So I've kept the streak going with both making at least a video a day and also working on the book. And I've gone 2 days with playing around with the DAW. So let's see, it's about 11 p.m. now, so I've got an hour left. I'm going to see if I can make one more video, maybe the DAW. Try to get in. I worked on the book yesterday, but very quickly. I edited a sentence or something. That might be what it's like tonight. Even if I don't make a video for the DAW, I'll still start it up and do it for 10 minutes, even if I don't go to the trouble of making a video. I'm going to keep trying to keep those streaks going, even if I just work on a sentence, write a sentence in the book, or play in the DAW for 10 minutes. That's okay. Some days I'm busier than others. The last 2 days have been very busy, and some days I'll have more time and attention. So I think the main thing is just keep working on it a little bit. Open up that DAW, open up Emacs for the book, and do a little bit. It's fine. Do it every day. Same with the videos. Doing and learning lots. So that I think is good. That's something I want to keep doing. I know that I won't always have the attention, and some days will be up and down, but I think I'm generally happier doing and learning lots, either very intensely one thing or a whole bunch of little things. And so I'm going to try to keep that going as well and try to stay out of the quiescent state, as I'm calling it. Yeah, so it's going well. One theme, one reason I'm learning and doing some things is that it's becoming, it was becoming increasingly clear. Now I think it's abundantly clear that for various reasons, partly due to work, partly due to things that I'm interested in, want to be able to do, I'm going to have to learn at a deeper level about a bunch of technologies that I've had some exposure to and that I mostly have either dislike for, or they just feel like big rabbit holes and super messy. And, this like the opposite of the lambda calculus, or the opposite of, core mini canren or micro canren or something like that. The opposite of core scheme. You have Kubernetes and Neo4j and all the different versions of Python and Python environments. Wow. Dealing with Python environments is really, really nasty stuff, is what I've found. But there are some advantages of these technologies, and there's a reason that they're so widely used. Now, Python's never been my favorite language. Well, maybe it was my favorite language for about a week, quite a long time ago. But certainly since I learned about Lisp, it hasn't been my favorite language, or even since I learned about Ruby, or certainly since I learned about Smalltalk. Python has not been my favorite language. Python 3 is different, so I just don't know it that well. Maybe it's amazing. The imperative nature of it is very much not where I'm coming from, but I also understand that It's got comprehensions and things like that. So, it seems like it has a lot of syntax, and I don't know. I just don't think the way Python is oriented. I used to think more like that, but Python feels very different for me than, let's say, Mini Canron. Very, very different. However, this year, starting already, it's not just, this isn't just a New Year thing, but like taking a little break and reflecting, it's helpful. And also just things for work and for projects. I'm working on, machine learning, deep learning, LLMs, neural networks, all that sort of thing, models, training, reinforcement learning. Those have become such important techniques and powerful techniques, at least in certain areas, but also techniques that have issues or, there are problems that symbolic approaches merged with these other approaches might be very powerful combination. So I think I just have to learn these things to a much greater degree than I've been willing to so far. I've been, maybe someone else will learn that, or I can only, I can restrict myself to part of a project where I don't need to know these things particularly well. I need to know they exist, but for the most part, don't have to dive into it. And that's worked a bit over the last few years, but it's gotten increasingly obnoxious because now I'm involved in a bunch of projects now that are using some or all of these technologies. And increasingly that's just going to be the way it is. So I either just have to not, just say, well, I'm not going to touch any of that stuff, or I'm just going to have to learn it. And so, I've come to the conclusion I just need to learn this stuff. Now that doesn't mean I have to be the world's expert on Docker. But, I should be at the point where Dockerizing some application and deploying it on Kubernetes under AWS, or doing BigQuery, or doing Neo4j Cypher using Python 3, whatever, that those are not, oh my, that's going to take me some time to get up to speed on. Those should be easy things. And, I guess an analogy there would be with making videos, right? So with making videos, it was, I wouldn't quite say traumatic, but it was such an annoyance every time I had to make a video that I really avoided it. And whenever I did have to make a video, it was sort of like a week of my life, and I would resent it most of the time, and just it wasn't a great way to improve. It was a great way to not make many videos and be upset about it. So what did I do? I started making a lot of videos and invested and figured out how to make videos, and spent a little money on equipment, but it wasn't that much, especially given how many videos I make. So just learn how to do it, and so it's not a big deal anymore. And so that's where I'd like to get. So, I've been on projects for years that use Neo4j, and I just didn't use it. So I know there's a query language called Cypher, and I can kind of read it, but I've never really used it in Anger. And I know there's an online control panel. You can log in. They have like a browser, online browser. You can interact with it, but I've never sat there and just played with it by writing Cypher queries, because I'm not, but I understand the concept of Cypher, but I haven't written 500 Cypher queries or 1,000 Cypher queries. I could do that pretty quickly. If I spent a week, learning Cypher, by the end of that week, I would know it just fine, I think. So, that's what I'm talking about. So, things like Docker, Kubernetes, there's like Docker Compose, there's Argo, There's all the cloud provider stuff like AWS, and there's the Google Cloud provider stuff, BigQuery, Bigtable, Neo4j and Cypher, Python. And then there are things like, the new tool use capabilities for Claude and Claude artifacts and Claude Desktop. I have Claude Desktop installed, and I've played around with a little bit. Same thing, I kind of tripped over myself quite a bit trying to get the Claude Desktop stuff to do something, and that's the sort of thing where, okay, yeah, it's going to be a bit of a learning curve, but at some point I will, if I stick at it and apply myself, maybe I make 20 applications or 20 tools or 50 tools or 100 tools that use Claude Desktop. And then at that point, it just won't be a big deal. Like I could make a tool a day with Claude Desktop and, just really figure it out. So let's see. I saw an interesting Hacker News post today that was towards the top. Let's see, I'm looking right now. Here we go. SimonWillison.net. Things we learned about LLMs in 2024. Which I find this an interesting article. And one of the things was about, one of the articles or one of the links to another article from this sort of comprehensive end-of-year review was Simon Willison has a blog post on making, tools, or what are they called? I don't even remember the name of it. It's like MCP, yeah, Model Context Protocol, MCP, which is also the name of the baddie in Tron, the master control program. So that's quite interesting. And let's see if I can find this. Probably. Okay, here we go. Claude artifacts. Here's my extract URLs. Okay, yeah, here is the blog post. It's called Everything I Built with Claude Artifacts This Week. That's October 21st, 2024. Yeah, and so it just links to a bunch of little artifacts or programs built. So that's the sort of thing I want to do. Is like, well, I shouldn't build one or two. I should build, 20 or 50 or 100. So that's where I want to spend a lot of time. And then also, like I've already said, I want to learn, at least a reading knowledge of Python. I want to play with Daphne and learn a little Coq. I guess now they're changing it to Rock, the name of it. What else? Learn some deep learning in Python, go through all that sort of thing. So, maybe I'll go back and try to learn a little either Agda or what's the Edwin Brady's language. Anyway, so something dependent typed. So I'm blanking on the name of that language, which is like Haskell syntax, but it's not lazy. I'm totally blanking on it, even though I've gone through part of that book several times. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about, okay? I'm sure you do. So I just want to learn a lot of things. It's not so much that I feel stuck in scheme land. There are plenty of things in scheme and mini-Kenron land that I'm happy to explore. It's not that. But I do feel that, the software development has really changed. I don't even think of myself as a software developer for the most part. I don't think in those terms, or there was a time where I was a working software engineer, but what I do in Mini-Canron, I don't consider software engineering or software development. That's different. That's like sort of research that's trying to figure out how programming could be done in a very different way, very long term, or at least medium long term. But these technologies are different. This is bringing me more into the software engineering or development realm. I don't know if I'd call much of this engineering. Some of it's engineering, some of it's not. But in any case, it's different, and it very much reminds me of this change at MIT and how they taught the intro course going from Scheme to Python robots. That's kind of how I feel here, going from things like Scheme and Mini-Canron to, Kubernetes and BigQuery and Neo4j and Cypher and Python. And a lot of these things I find quite yucky or at the wrong scale, or, the infrastructure is just enormously complicated, often for reasons that don't seem to make sense to me, or maybe because they have to support a bunch of use cases that I don't have. But, the bottom line is that's what people are using right now on a bunch of these projects I'm involved in. And, even though I don't particularly find most of this interesting, I guess that's the thing. I don't find Docker interesting. I think Docker is disgusting. Kubernetes also seems disgusting. And, Docker, it seems like my understanding is things better than Docker existed in, say, the Sun world a long time ago. But, Docker is what we ended up with, which is the way it often happens as technology. We end up with something in many ways worse than older systems, but, sort of like the Jupyter notebooks type thing. So, on the other hand, when you have all these pieces of technology put together, in some sense, you start getting towards this vision of reusable components, component-oriented software development, that type of thing. And there is some engineering there in the Howard Aiken sense of, an engineer is someone who can build for $1 what any damn fool can build for 10. Now, Python is not the fastest language. And so there are times where that may not be the fastest thing, but in practice, what's happening is that Python probably is like a wrapper around C++ code or something like that. So, people have managed to make all this stuff work, and, people have managed to make JavaScript shockingly fast on the web. That's really amazing. So it's an ecosystem that we have available to us now. And so there are some interesting benefits. So it feels kind of like a Faustian bargain to me. When I was first learning about symbolic AI and, good old fashioned AI, and reading about what people wanted to do in the 50s and 60s, well, a lot of that stuff now, just works, and you can even run it on a laptop or a phone even. And it's like, okay, we have really good text-to-speech. We have really good speech recognition. We have text-to-speech. We have speech-to-text. We have, sort of superhuman level understanding of grammar. We have decent translation between languages. Not amazing, not poetic, and often serious meaning is lost, and sometimes the whole meaning is lost, but that's gotten much, much better. And many other things, are getting better that were super hard. Like, here's an image, describe it in text. Okay, now that has become, I won't say it's a completely solved problem. It's not, but it's so much better than what we had even 10 years ago that it's not even funny. And compared to what, sort of these pioneers in AI were doing in the 50s and 60s, it's just worlds beyond. Now, of course, the people in the 50s didn't know what was hard. And so they thought they were going to use symbolic techniques and rules, rule-based systems and all that to be able to do natural language processing, to be able to, beat the best humans in chess and all these other things. And that turned out to be much harder than they thought. But now we can do a lot of that stuff. And so when I read about Advice Taker, the idea of Advice Taker by McCarthy, as far as I can tell, he never got anywhere in terms of implementing it. Like big chunks of that are now possible. And it's true of a lot of the visionary systems. Like people wanted to build these things, just wasn't possible with the technology they had at the time. Like things like the Programmer's Apprentice out of MIT. That system, very interesting, but they started working on it in the late 70s. They wanted you to be able to talk to your computer and have a programming assistant that would work at the architectural level with you. And at that time, speech to text was extremely primitive and expensive and all that. Yeah, now it's cheap. Now there's even real-time, video fed into these multimodal LLMs and all that. So that feels like the bargain. It's like, hey, Will from 25 years ago, the good news is you will have access to all of these capabilities. You'll be able to run those things on a laptop. The trade-off is you're going to have to use, you're going to have to learn Kubernetes and Neo4j and like how to get the environment for Python working, all that junk, all of that complexity that I don't like and try to avoid. That's why I'm attracted to languages like Scheme more than languages like Haskell. That's a big part of it, is just the sort of minimalism, whereas that the ecosystem for sort of modern machine learning doesn't feel minimal at all. It feels like everyone's throwing everything at the wall, and it's like, how many different systems are there for managing environments in Python? How many different, UV and pip, and I recently came across another one, and and then UV has like a pip compatibility mode, but sometimes maybe you're using pip and sometimes you're using UV, and activating your virtual environments and all this stuff, that really drives me up the wall. But on the other hand, it was like the Java class path nonsense times 100. But on the other hand, okay, the payoff for figuring out all that stuff out is you have these super powerful components for building software that can behave intelligently. And now you can, try to build some of the things that these pioneers could only dream of building in practice. So anyway, we'll see. Hopefully things like neurosymbolic combinations, ends up emerging, mini Kenran plus Scheme. So sometimes like, well, messing around with mini Kenran, does that mean anything in the world of OpenAI and, these companies with billions and tens of billions of dollars of investment, all that. But on the other hand, it's like, well, actually, I think so, because those systems still have problems where the symbolic systems are strong, and maybe we can figure out how to combine those. So by learning all of this junk, so I don't have any other way to refer to this stuff than junk, this disgusting junk, this disgusting morass, this cesspool of complexity. All right, fine. I can learn that stuff. I mean, I learned it when I was a Java developer. It's horrible. I mean, I hated it. I hated Java. But, I mean, I hate Java to this day. I hate Java. I hate Java. I hate JavaScript probably even more. Well, I don't know. I hate almost all these languages, actually. I really find them disgusting. I hate Python too, but I'm willing to learn Python 3. I'm willing to learn at least some of it, much more than I currently know, if it allows me to build these systems that I've wanted to build for a long time. And that reminds me also, Quentin Tarantino's view of filmmaking and digital. Like, he loves film stock and 35 millimeter or 65 millimeter film stock or whatever. He wants a physical artifact and frames moving by 24 times a second, and that whole thing, like a film camera, not digital, So that's one of the reasons, he has this phrase, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for this. And that's one reason I think that he's going to retire, or at least he says he's going to retire after his 10th movie or whatever. And so I certainly didn't sign up in some sense. I signed up to get a PhD in programming languages, focusing on those languages that were strong for symbolic manipulation and computation, like Scheme, Lisps, and logic programming or relational programming languages. And in hindsight, it's like, oh, okay, I was actually sort of speed running those languages for the good old-fashioned AI. I didn't really think of it at the time, but it's like, oh yeah, with Lisp and Prolog, well, Scheme and Mini Canron, sort of a more modern take on those things. But now the non-symbolic techniques have gotten so powerful, I think it's worth my getting to know how to use those much better. And as I get into it, I'm sure there are plenty of things in Python that as I get used to it, I was like, okay, actually this is pretty cool. I mean, there are some things in Python there that are nice. So I'm not going to do a Tarantino. It's like, okay, I'll just learn it. I'll be the Murakami with the writing. He says he writes every day without, what was the phrase? He said something like, I write every morning without hope or despair, or something like that. I'm going to learn this stuff every day without hope or despair, but I'll keep my heart and my mind open towards interesting things or cool things, like, oh yeah, that is a cool feature. That's not something Scheme has, okay, or that's not something Mini Canron has. So, is this a disgusting mess, or is it finally a chance to wave a magic wand and remove many of the stickiest problems of building software with intelligent behavior? So if I think of it that way, just like, oh wow, all of those things which were just intractable and we had no idea how to handle. Like I remember when I was an undergraduate, this was, after Deep Blue had beaten Kasparov, but Go was still considered untouchable. That wasn't that long ago, where Go was like, well, someday maybe, but no one knows how to do it. And it turns out that the techniques that were used to solve Go, I mean, not solve, but to create superhuman Go, was different than what was used in Deep Blue. Okay. Anyway, so that's what I'm planning to put a lot of my attention into. I've already started. And then, just this philosophy of never wait, the Kanachity, never wait, keep doing and learning. And at the same time, I don't want to, but keep doing and learning. What I mean is I don't want to enter the quiescent state where I'm just like watching, random YouTube videos all night or something because I'm bummed out or not stimulated or something. That's not what I want to do. Now, that at the same time, that doesn't mean I should be doing something all the time to escape, what's going on in my life or to avoid thinking or feeling. That's not what I mean. It doesn't mean I can't take breaks. I definitely need breaks and downtime. I just want to be a little more deliberate about it. And if I take a break, I'd like to take that break spending time with someone or doing something I enjoy that's more active, or maybe just doing nothing, just chilling out and not having a screen in front of me and just, relaxing and thinking some. And being bored. I want to be bored more often. That's something that, I used to get bored. It's hard to get bored when you have the internet around. You have screens and email and texts and all that, social media, YouTube. So I want to get bored more. So anyway, that's what's up with me. Got about half an hour left in the day. So I think I'll fire up the DAW and maybe edit a sentence in my book and call it a night. Maybe I'll play a game of Brood War against the computer. Played against two computer AIs the other day. That didn't go well, let me tell you. I figure I should practice a little against the computer before I subject a human on ladder to how bad I am. It's like, I have to get to a certain level of competency, I feel, before I waste someone's time on ladder. Okay. That's it. Well, happy New Year's Eve. Happy New Year by the time you're hearing this. And here's to 2025. Bye-bye.